Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Kaylee McEnany here with my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Emily Campagno. Also joining us, Lily Gil Valletta and Guy Benson. So, furious new reaction to President Biden's speech last night, warning Americans that democracy as we know it is going to end in 5 days if you don't vote for the Democrats. That was the warning. During the last-minute speech, it was near the Capitol at Union Station. Curious, because we didn't hear him mention crime in a crime-ridden train station. Interesting point there. Juxtaposition, the optics matter, but apparently not to the president, who argued that voters need to, quote, preserve and protect democracy by electing members of his own party. Republicans, well, they fired back today, calling the speech patronizing in a bid to divide and distract Americans. We'll let you decide. Take a listen.
This is the struggle we're now in. A struggle for democracy, a struggle for decency and dignity, a struggle for prosperity and progress, a struggle for the very soul of America itself. The remarkable thing about American democracy is this: just enough of us, on just enough occasions, have chosen not to dismantle democracy, but to preserve democracy. We must choose that path again. Because democracy is in the ballot.
So I want to put this in context. Yesterday, the preview of the speech from the press secretary, she seemed to dismiss Peter Doocy's question on this very point of Republicans being a threat to democracy. Take a watch.
Following up on your comment that there's an alarming number of Republicans who are saying they're not going to accept election results, does that mean President Biden thinks it is a threat to democracy if somebody votes Republican?
No, that's a ridiculous question. No.
Why is that a ridiculous question?
Because American people should have their right to vote for whomever they want. We are talking about MAGA Republican officials who have been very clear about this, who say, you know, they are pro-police, but then they are also pro-insurrectionists. That is, you cannot be pro-police and be pro-insurrectionist.
So, Harris, she said that it's ridiculous to say that the president thinks Republicans are a threat to democracy. But quickly, I just want to play for you a flashback to his September speech. The question's not at all ridiculous, because here was the president saying just that, not one, but two, but three times.
Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. The Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country, clear and present danger to our democracy.
So basically what this tells us is that Democrats have been out of the way, out of the ideas for winning this election cycle since September, at least. Yep. Because that is a pitch to the ditch. Last-ditch ideas. What are we going to do? What are we going to tell people to get them out to vote after we told them that the election laws were going to keep them from voting, and then shot ourselves in the foot by telling our own base, along with everybody else, don't go vote? So how do we get them out? Oh, we're going to tell them that the sky is falling and that the democracy will fall along with it. We'll try that part. Poor KJP. I say this all the time. She seems so nice. She's beautiful, right? She's a lovely woman. It's not in the binder. Because he didn't tell her what he was going to say, apparently, or she's not listening to him when he does talk. I don't know which it is. But he has made it very clear that it's them and everybody else. It's them against the world. And the only way that you get to be in their world is to vote like him. If you're black, you don't vote for him, you're not really black. I mean, you can go down a whole bunch of lists where if you're not like them, then you're just not going to keep America together. That doesn't work. What happened to the message of I feel your pain, I know you're struggling right now, it's getting cooler in other parts of the country, not where he is because he was cozy at the cleaned up Union Station in Washington, D.C., still warm. He changed the optics on crime in the location where he spoke. They're trying to change the optics of what it takes to win an election in 5 days. I don't think they can do that. Maybe they can make it better for themselves. I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, he said to half the country, if you don't vote for him, you're going to break America.
Yeah, that was the takeaway. My other takeaway, Guy, was that he didn't seem to know the year. This is 2022. We have high gas prices. We have high inflation. This is not about the 2020 election. It just simply is not. But maybe it was apropos because the day prior in Florida, he didn't seem to know the century. You can watch this and we'll get your thoughts.
Well, if anybody think if we're doing it for the first time now in the 21st century, going into the 20th, from the 20th century going into the second quarter of the 21st century, that we'd say 12 years is enough? Think 12 years is enough going into 20, 30, 40, 50?
What?
I mean,
he's like an auctioneer. 20, 30,
you can translate, Guy.
Please don't ask me to do that. What a gift to the Florida Republicans having him down there in the closing stretch of this campaign. Here's the other thing about the whole democracy talking point last night and the soundbite that you played of the press secretary. It's a little bit awkward because she herself is an election denier. She said that the election in Georgia was stolen from Stacey Abrams 4 years ago. She said in 2016 the election was stolen for Donald Trump, and then she was hired by this president to speak on his behalf. And she is sort of a quasi-unapologetic election denier herself. So I think that some of the points in a vacuum that the president made last night, I could be on board with. There's just no credibility there. Right? This is a president who also not long ago went down, not to harp on Georgia, but he went down to that state, and he said the completely common sense election reforms that they made in that state were worse than Jim Crow.
Yep.
And he endorsed Stacey Abrams, who's one of the biggest election deniers in the country, as opposed to Brian Kemp, the person who has accepted election results, even when it was tough for him. Yeah. He was on the other side, the president was. So if someone wants to make some of the points that he's making, fair enough. It's not front burner for most Americans, but he and his administration, unfortunately, have very little credibility, and I think that he should probably have a seat.
And he probably shouldn't have found a camera last night, Emily, because Democrats did not receive this well. Peter Baker of the New York Times wrote this in part, that while Democrats largely agree with the argument he made, not every Democrat thought it was helpful for him to make the address when candidates are trying to distance themselves from him. You had Axelrod, who, while he praised the speech's content, went on to say, I doubt many Democrats in marginal races are eager for him to be on TV tonight. So wasn't well received by Democrats. By the way, the same Democrats who are propping up the candidates they now say are a threat to democracy.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly the point that I want to hammer. So we have a president that singled out half of America last night, right? He said it was a threat to democracy. He says it's an existential threat, a fight for the soul of America, Republicans. Then he fails to mention that his own party spent tens of millions of dollars putting those people on the ballot. If it was really an existential threat, if it was really about the soul, money wouldn't matter. They would do all that they could to prevent the dismantling of democracy. But he's been silent about Democrats elevating them the entire time. And even the executive president of the Democratic National Committee, Sam Cornali, he admits it freely. He said, oh, well, yeah, that's just politics. So that's what the Democrat Party is, you guys. Crime they only care about when it's about currying favor with voters. The threat of democracy only matters when it's rhetoric, because it's all about getting those votes on the ballot. This just illustrates that their rhetoric, crime, migrant safety, education, it's a sham. And so are their principles.
Yeah, and you can see the issues important to voters. We have them on the wall: the economy, abortion, crime, gun policy, immigration, relations with Russia, climate change, very low down there. But then you see the mentions he made: 0 on the border, 0 on crime, 0 on inflation, 0 on supply chain, 0 on gas, 0 on China. A lot of big zeros. We could go on. Look at all the zeros, Lily.
Yeah. Regardless of politics, any good strategy, let me talk like a marketer for a second, is anchored on what matters to your customers, your voters, your constituents. And obviously, this is out of line with what matters to Americans. Over and over again, and I run data all the time, we just got brand spanking new numbers today for the last 14 days based on 7 million data points. Culture Intel reports that the positive sentiment towards the GOP nationwide is 46%. And we know from CNN's information, 17% is about the favorability that is strong towards President Biden. So it's not only the messenger and that brand and affinity that he has or not with Americans right now, but it's this strategic misalignment for talking about things that are not the top issues. I think Reagan was the one that said that the issues of America are fixed around the dinner table. Well, these are kitchen table issues that should be the priority of the messaging, and we're missing out. And just anyone that does the homework and looks at the numbers would realign that script.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, when you're at the dinner table, you're not talking about democracy and having this esoteric talk. You're talking about the price of chicken, eggs, gasoline, and how to send your kid to college. So that's just it. Bottom line.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Compagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.